Good afternoon. All right, very good. So today is going to be a very special get together where we have the real privilege of hearing from Tony Butner about the project that we are engaged with him and with Tara Halsey, who is our Dean of Nursing and Vice President for Wellness and Health Promotion. Is that close, Tara? Close, good. Um, I'm Clay Marsh for those of you who don't know me, and I want to talk just for a second about the importance of what we're here about today. And so as we look at what we want to represent, both to the rest of our state, but also to the rest of our country and beyond, we want to be a place that really embraces health and wellness. And so as you look and try to frame what that exactly means and what kind of culture really supports that, then to me, I got my epiphany as I was talking to another elite, esteemed group of people, maybe not quite as elite and esteemed as you guys, but I was talking to the Navy SEALs. And I had my white coat on and I was being introduced and I was trying to be very professorial. And I said to them, "It's great to be with you. You're America's bright and best, and you're really healthy." And one of the guys' hands go up. And I thought to myself, what did you not understand about what I just said? Maybe not the smartest people, but of course it was me that wasn't so smart. And he said, "Doc, let's make sure we're on the same page. Really fit, we're not really healthy. High risk behavior, we get deployed, our days and nights get inverted for months at a time. High cholesterol, high blood pressure, really stressed, really fit, not really healthy." What does healthy mean then? And the best that I could come up with is that healthy is when your body's real age, your biological age, is much lower than your birthday age, your chronological age. So your body's real age to me is really the measure of health. And you start to think about that, then longevity becomes a substitute to me for health. And so as you look at the best studies in the world on longevity, one that really floats to the top very quickly is the blue zones. And the blue zones, and I'm sure, are you going to talk about the blue zones in general? Okay, I won't steal your thunder. Won't steal your thunder. But the blue zones are areas of the world where people live extremely long and extremely well. And there are some secrets, and Tony will share those. I won't. But what I will say is that we want to be a place where we facilitate the ability for the people that we care about, you, our team, our family, our community, to live long and well and help spread that to other places. And so we are talking with the Blue Zone Group to be the first university in this country where the university is the frame of the Blue Zone certified area. And then we want to help our community, our state, beyond, be part of this. And Tony will tell you there's a very, very exciting network of places that are starting to sign up to be part of this. So the opportunity for us is very important, both because it is a great thing for us to aspire to, but it is really, to me, part of us taking care of our own family. And so I'm really excited that everybody's here. I know that you guys left some questions and we will address those. But what I will do next is I will shut up so you can hear from Tony and hear what the real important information is. Tara Halsey will introduce Tony, and then Tara and I will ask all of the hard questions, the insightful questions, the important questions to Tony to answer. Anyway, so it should be a lot of fun. So thank you, Tara, to you.
Welcome and thank you. Can you hear me now? Welcome and thanks for taking the time to be here with us as we embark on this journey. We've been working intensely for the past several months with the Blue Zone team in efforts to become, as Clay mentioned, a university certified Blue Zone. There are 47 certified communities, 47 communities, but we would be the first in the world university to be certified by Blue Zone. So I think we can do it, and it's the time to do it. I have the pleasure of introducing Tony Buettner. He is our Blue Zones guest. Tony is the Vice President for Business Development for the Blue Zones, and he's an integral part of their team. His insights and experiences have contributed to 47 communities being healthier and happier. So please help me welcome Tony Buettner.
Thank you. I have to tell you, when I drive from the airport out here, it is absolutely stunning. You live in most beautiful places in the country. So nice to be here. Why don't I start off with raise your hand if you've heard of Blue Zones. So quite a few. My goal today will be to share from a very high level our research and the work that we've done, scaled, and then to show you what Morgantown and with Virginia University to truly do something innovative and important for not only the region, but for the state. So our Blue Zones research has been an ongoing 15-year worldwide longevity study. It was commissioned by National Geographic and the National Institute of Aging. And the idea and for us was, could we find the longest lived populations, understand what their commonalities are, and learn from those populations? Our premise when we started was, what drives longevity? And we found a document called the Danish Twin Studies that established that longevity is tied to your genes by only about 20%. 80% of our longevity is tied to our environments and our lifestyles. So our premise was, if we could find the right environments and the right lifestyles that support longevity, we could have really the de facto recipe. Our simple approach was to find geographically defined, demographic confirmed places around the world where people just simply live longer lives, living to age 100 at about 10 times the rate we do here in America, and suffering only about a sixth diseases that we face. And over the last 15 years, we've identified 5 places in the world, coined them the Blue Zones, and it's to these places that we hired the brightest and best demographers, anthropologists, medical researchers, nutritionists, and have actually embedded ourselves there to learn. After finding the first 3 Blue Zones in 2004, my brother Dan, the founder, wrote an article for National Geographic. I'd actually made the cover story, and to date, it's the second most read edition of National Geographic in their 130-year history. People want to know, how do I live a long, happy life? What are the simple secrets that I can implement into my life? Things that will nudge me relentlessly to make a healthy choice, the easy choice. When you look at the longest lived populations, you see 9 key commonalities over and over and over again. And it's really the foundation to our work. We call these the Power 9, the lessons to live a long, happy life. The first one is that these populations move naturally. They don't belong to gyms. They don't run marathons. They live in environments and have lifestyles that subtly but relentlessly nudge them into physical movement. On average, every 20 minutes. They don't have convenience to push a button for this, to push a button for that. They're actually kneading the bread. They're going out into their gardens. Almost every single activity affords a little physical movement. They have ways to downshift. In other words, reduce stress that is associated with many preventable diseases. And they use very simple time-honored traditions, simple things like yoga or meditation or having dinner with their family or a garden, or Sardinians, what they simply do is go to happy hour, but they have a way to connect with family and friends. I usually get a small giggle for that one. I like that one too. They have purpose. They wake up every morning with a sense of purpose. They can articulate it and they live it. Researchers tell us that's worth an additional 7 years of longevity compared to those that don't have that sense of purpose. In Okinawa, it's called Ikigai. In Costa Rica, it was Plan de Vida. These populations ate wisely. We saw a small amount of alcohol consumption. It was typically wine. It was always with friends, family, and a healthy meal. These populations, on average, 95% of what they eat is plant-based whole grain. That's not to say they're vegans or vegetarians, they're not. But when you look at the animal protein they consume on a monthly basis, they do it about 5 times, and the average portion size is that of this clicker, about 3 to 4 ounces. We know that every single Blue Zone diet is beans. They're cheap, they're easy to prepare, they're filling, and they're good for you. And these populations have strategies not to overeat. So they don't eat family style. They would pre-plate their kitchen, put their leftovers away and eat in another room. They'd eat off of smaller plates. They'd eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. Or the Okinawans simply sit down before every meal and remind themselves to stop eating when they're 80% full. And what we think the foundation of all the longest lived populations is how they are connected. They put their family first. They keep their aging parents close or actually living with them. And we know that affords 4 to 6 years of extra longevity. They nurture their children. We even see the grandmother effect. The grand families suffer lower rates of infant mortality and disease. They have faith. And this wasn't about religion. It was about faith. It was about resilience to get them through hard times. We talked to 263 centenarians in 5 places, though, and only 3 did not belong to a faith-based community. And there's research that shows people that participate in a faith-based community at least 4 times a month or more and participate live 4 to 14 years longer than those that don't. We have no idea why that is. Is it the committed social networks of friends or the healthy behaviors? We don't know. And lastly, these populations were either born into or actively seeked out healthy friendships. And we now know that 3 people, your 3 closest friends, have a profound effect on your well-being. It's almost actually as contagious as a cold. If your 3 best friends smoke, you have a 160% greater chance of smoking. It's the same with loneliness, obesity. But imagine if your 3 best friends are nudging you out of bed to go for a walk or to go out and eat a healthy meal. That becomes a contagion as well. So with a grant from the CDC, we were asked to look at the learnings of the longest lived populations to study community health initiatives around the world that had taken an unhealthy population and made them healthy and sustained it. And with that knowledge, create a model to work with communities around the country. Surprisingly, it took us 2 years to find one that had actually worked. And that was in North Karelia, Finland. We've never had a successful population health initiative in our country. So with those learnings of what doesn't work, we created what we call the life radius approach to population health. We understand that each and every one of us in this room spend about 90% of our time in a 5-mile life radius of where we live and where we work. We know if we put the focus on individuals and badger them, incentivize them, or guilt them into healthier behaviors, it simply doesn't work. But we do know that if we can change environments and lifestyles and the design of the places that we spend our time to make the healthy choice, the easy choice, and we know where we need to look is the longest lived population. So what Blue Zones focuses on is creating a perfect storm of well-being in a community, in a university. And we focus our efforts on people, places, and policies. First, with people, we get a critical mass of people to pledge to just change one health behavior. And I'll give you a couple examples. We've worked with over 10 million people now, and we strengthen this pledge year to year. One might be to either buy or adopt a dog. I see one of my favorite buddies in the crowd here today. Now think about that. Why would that affect your well-being? What do you do every single night when you get home if you get a dog? You walk it every single night long enough for it to matter. Or simple things like optimizing your kitchen so healthy choices are easy. When you go to your refrigerator every night and you're looking for fresh fruits and vegetables and you open your refrigerator, where do you find it? The bottom, out of sight, out of mind. So Blue Zones would suggest chopping your fruits and vegetables on Saturday or Sunday night, putting them in single serving containers and putting them on the top shelf. Wouldn't that make the healthy choice the easy choice? And we learned how important it is for people that are trying to change their health behavior to have support. When you look at diets and gym memberships and supplements, these are short-term wins and long-term failures. It's difficult for people to do things long enough the right way to work. But we know from research, if you have 3 best friends minimally that want to change your health behavior, that the success ratio just accelerates. So we look at the Okinawans and the sense of Moais to create committed social networks of friends that want to drive change around walking or biking or healthy eating. We learned how important purpose was. So we put on purpose workshops that help people identify their 5 gifts, their 5 passions, and actually create your own mission statement for change, for living, and invite volunteer organizations so that you can share those gifts in your community. We know volunteers suffer higher rates of well-being and lower rates of disease and obesity. And then we look at all the places that we spend our day, that we bump through the 8 hours that we're away from our home. Places like restaurants, where we go to get a meal. Convenience stores or grocery stores where we might get some of our food. Our work site, our university or school where we go or where our kids go, and our faith-based communities. Could there be a way to get a critical mass of these organizations to implement evidence-based, science-backed strategies simply to make healthy choices the default? And how about policy? How important is policy as it relates to the built environment? Is our environment built to just nudge us to get into our cars and sit in traffic and be stressed out? Or is our environment set up to nudge us to walk or bike or socialize with those in our community? And how about food? When you go to shop, is healthy choice the default? Or are you run through a gauntlet of unhealthy snack options, sugar-sweetened beverages and salty snacks? And how about that food create an opportunity where healthy fruits and vegetables were easy and a little harder to get those unhealthy options? And how about tobacco? Is there a way that we can continue to make it easier not to smoke? So back in 2008, AARP and the United Health Foundation sponsored us to do a pilot. They gave us the funds to do a 13-month initiative. We put an RFP out. We had 78 cities in America raise their hand and say, we want to do this. We want to be partners in innovation. We chose a city by the name of Albert Lea, Minnesota, population of about 18,000. Just 13 short months. City workers' healthcare claims down over 40%. Tobacco usage in the county down 17%. A 58% increase of walkability into their downtown, an 80% increase of people walking, biking, connecting. But the best thing that happened in Albert Lea, Minnesota was 250 that came together and learned how to deploy a systems approach to population health. And today, 10 years later, they're known around the world as an innovator in population health. When we started in Albert Lea, Minnesota, their county health rankings were 68th out of 87th, and today they're at 33. They've received over $40 million add-on grants and over 1 billion positive media impressions of their cities to become a city of choice. And they've now been named twice by Realtors.com as the top 5 cities in America you want to move your family to. A complete transformation. From that work, we've now scaled to 12 cities, and as of 2 days ago, 48 communities. We've done statewide initiatives in 3 states, Iowa, Hawaii, and Oregon. We've done countywide initiatives in Florida, in Oklahoma, and in Wisconsin. We've worked with communities all around. We couldn't be more excited to be here because the vision here is to make West Virginia the best place to live, with the best education, with the best health, and the best economy. And I think everyone here understands the challenges of where we are today and what it'll take to get here, something transformational. So when we look at how do we deploy a Blue Zone project, these are community-led initiatives. They're led by volunteers, they're led by leaders, a staff is hired, our national experts on the built environment, food, and tobacco assist. We have a national team that sets these up, but they roll out in 3 phases. The first phase is foundation and planning, and this is where we're teaching, and more importantly, we're learning. We're learning of the individuals and organizations that are doing like-minded work. We're learning what are the strengths within your community as it relates to well-being. We're learning what are the challenges, what's been tried and failed, what's the low-hanging, the true opportunities to partner. Once we're able to do that foundation planning and build the metrics and the machine, we would deploy a Blue Zone project. They typically take 3 to 5 years, and then we transfer that effort to the community in a sustainability plan at the end. For us, we've worked again with over 10 million individuals and about 3,000 organizations, and we've worked with in these Blue Zone projects. But typically we've looked at them as really just an employer. But what we've learned over the last 10 years is that universities are an incredible place. They're not just about employees. They're about students. They're about faculty. They're about alumni. And they're about the connection from the boundaries of the university. So we've had many universities that have said, why can't we use your restaurant pledge to transform our food service? Why can't we use your grocery store pledge to transform our commissaries and gift shops? Why can't our experts and our students be part of the built environment, food policy, and tobacco policy work that's happening in the community? And how about all those organizations that really don't fit in a box? Couldn't our residents become certified Blue Zone residents? One university, the University of Northern Iowa, was the first to say, we want to participate in Blue Zones as a resident hall. We want to be the first certified Blue Zones resident hall in the country. And we had never done this. We're a team of innovators, but we looked at strategies to change those environments, connect people, and drive purpose. They chose some very unique metrics to measure. One was the average damage of each of these buildings from year to year. They were $50,000. There were 3 of 7 residents that became Blue Zone certified. And when we measured a year later, in those 3 buildings, there was only $5,000 worth of damage. So it goes to show the importance of building community and taking pride in what you look at a framework of how we would partner together at the university. We look at how could this impact your employees? How could it impact your students, your faculty, your alumni? And how about brand? To make this university, through this partnership, being the healthiest in the country and start to drive change and well-being. And What's the value proposition and the indicators that we'll track during the project? The first step, as I said, is an assessment. And for the last 2 months, and this is a 4-month process, we've been working with both the university and Morgantown to assess current state. What's working? Who are the like-minded organizations already doing this work and reaching out, meeting, and learning from those organizations, but also identifying what are the real challenges here and barriers to well-being, and where are the low-hanging fruit and the opportunities. Over the next 2 months, we'll be looking at the built environment, not only in the university, but around Morgantown, to look at your active transportation and built environment. Is it easy to move? Is it easy to walk? Is it easy to bike? Or are we stuck in traffic and are we stuck in cars? We'll be looking at the food system and the food environment. Are there ways to create a healthier environment where it's easy for people to eat healthy? We'll be looking at how currently are faculty and students connecting in and around well-being. And the big vision here is to create literally thousands of well-being ambassadors that will go out in the community and help drive a Blue Zone project here at the university and locally, but go out into the world and start to change the well-being of our country. We've worked with a large medical center as an employer, and we looked at that, those 2 buildings and those 4,000 employees as a community. We looked at people, places, and policy. We held 3 months of assessments and learning, and we created a custom blueprint approach for them to become Blue Zone certified and work together for 3 years. And these are just some of the results of that work that yielded over $27 million in reductions of healthcare claims, but connected the medical center to the community that they serve. Excuse me. So when we do a Blue Zone project assessment, there are some deliverables. And those are a site visit report looking at the 12 sectors that we work in. We bring in multiple experts around the built environment, food, tobacco, purpose, the medical center, university students, et cetera. From this, we learn the inputs needed to put a proposal together. What would be the scope and the duration and an investment of a Blue Zone project? And what would be the objectives and strategies, and how would we measure that work? We'll end up returning about 30 to 60 days after this concludes by the end of the year to meet with the university and the community with the proposal and those findings, and present actually a draft project charter for a statewide vision. Here we're looking to work with the university and the community as demonstration sites, but with a vision to scale this throughout the state. When we look at how do we pull off a 4-month assessment this large, we look at the community, we look at the university, we look at Blue Zone projects to kind of create the foundation of success to build towards this. The first month, we're now in our second month of this 4-month process. In the first 4 months, we created the foundation and the learning to go out and do this work. We started working with the city of Morgantown in the assessment process. Now here in month 2, we're turning our focus to the university. Over the next month, we'll be holding focus groups, one-on-ones, bringing in experts to learn and build a foundation. What we would ask here as we start 3 months is for those of you in the auditorium today to participate, to reach out to your colleagues, to your family, to come to see a value proposition, to be part of stakeholder focus groups so we can learn from you, to be part of one-on-one stakeholder meetings. There's going to be advertisements on when built environment, discovery, food, and workshops are going to be, and we look to you to participate and teach us of how we can make the university the healthiest in the country. Month 4, we'll be compiling all the information and, as I said, returning with the findings of readiness and what we believe the right solution for a Blue Zone project. The goal here is, and as Clay mentioned, is to help the university become the first certified university in the country. And we would measure that through Gallup using the well-being index. It'd be measuring 40 different indicators of well-being of the university and the students to identify current state of well-being and how that moves. We'd be looking at the university that's already measuring community metrics and landing on 10 that we would measure throughout the Blue Zone project, and working with the critical mass of people, places, and policy. We use, as I mentioned, the Gallup Healthways Wellbeing Index as our North Star measurement, third party. They do nightly surveys, which they've been doing over for a decade, of 40 different indicators of well-being, of how people are thinking of their purpose, their social, their financial, community, and physical today and 5 years out. So we're able to get a snapshot of what's driving disease prevalence and risk factors in a community. We can use this data as we deploy objectives and strategies to address some of these these challenges that are not right in front of us. And this is a tool that we use for that. We know that early success will build momentum. The vision that we've been discussing over the last year is creating the foundation for a West Virginia vision to help the university become the first certified campus in the country, working with employer, health system, and university, and the community of Morgantown, and hoping that those early successes here will expand to other communities and campuses throughout the state, and that with these successes, that we make the state of West Virginia the 4th statewide Blue Zone project in the country. And I'll end there and answer questions for you. And I'd like to thank you so much for coming. Sure. All righty. Sure.
Right in front of the light.
Right.
Great.
Can we turn the projector off, please? So what we want to do now is we're going to quiz Tony a little bit, but we really want to invite you guys to ask any questions you have. And if you have a question, hold your hand up. Thank you. And we have microphones coming. There were some pre-done questions, and if we have those, if somebody's reading them or handing them over to us, we'll be happy to ask them. So Tony, I'm going to ask you the first question. What have you learned from all of your experience with all these places in your personal life, and how you see things now that you've had this vast amount of experience?
Well, for me, I've had an extraordinary life. I've been able to be an explorer, an entrepreneur. I lived in the Caribbean for 20 years and owned adventure travel company. And I think what the learnings of the longest lived populations have done for me and my family has really realized that it's not about chasing the dollar. It's not about 16-hour days. It's about simple things that we can do for ourselves, for our family, for our kids, our parents, and our communities. Just small things that can be implemented that just have a profound effect on our well-being. Simple things like getting a dog or having a garden or connecting with whatever faith looks like to you, or to think through, when I get stressed out, what can I do? What simple strategies can I implement to stop? And what does purpose truly look like? I think most of us have it inside of us, but we haven't gone through the process of really creating that mission statement and understanding what the strengths and gifts each of us have, and how can we share that. There's just so much balance in that. And for me, I come from a very close family, and friends are very important. So I've taken many of the learnings of the longest lived populations and either implemented or strengthened them in my life.
I have a question from the audience. If WVU is designated as a Blue Zone university, how will that impact the students? And I can personally say that one of the things that I'm so excited about is that students are key to this whole initiative. And, you know, Tony mentioned the student ambassadors, and the students would be involved in driving innovation. So I think that the students are very key to this overall success.
I think for me, a couple thoughts here. You know, growing up when I was in college in the early 80s, I think it was always, you know, we're just being told what to do. And I think things have changed over the last 3 decades. Kids are smart. Kids want a better life. They want better communities. They don't want to be told what to do, and they're smart. I mean, look who's teaching us how to use technology. It's not us, it's kids. And when you look at community health initiatives, you typically see these big buckets of demographics missing. And I think it's so important to connect the existing leadership in a community, but go out and get representation from your whole community, what that looks like, the hard to reach, the challenge, students and parents and leaders. And I think that's where the special sauce comes together that makes these so important. For me, and I think the big vision is students today aren't really happy with the way things are going. They want a healthy environment. They want healthy families. They want vibrant careers, and they want to be part of that. And the idea to create thousands of well-being ambassadors at this time of their life where they're so passionate about finding what their path is, and to be able to go out and start families, be part of businesses and start businesses, I truly see it as the beginning of a wave of change.
Awesome. We have a question.
Yes, from someone that has medical issues that I think it's really hard. People don't realize what they're eating. And like at some of the restaurants, like the fat content or nutrition information is not out there. And when I had to start looking at it, it was very eye-opening to see what I could eat and what I couldn't eat.
Sure.
And I feel like more nutritious food costs more. If we could help, it would help if we could get like salads that didn't cost $9 or $10, as opposed to you can get a hamburger meal for like $3. So I don't know if you all are able to help the community that way, to maybe give us some nutritious choices that are not as costly as some of the nutritious food.
It's a great question. I'd be happy to share what we've seen in some of our communities and what we try to implement to help that. So first of all, I think policy is a big one, because policies can affect the whole community. And in our food environment work, we work with the community to identify challenges and barriers and look at about 100 different policies, programs, and projects that are happening around the country that are making fruits and vegetables and healthy foods cheap and easy to access. And there's a lot of ways to do that. So the first wave of this work will be identifying from that high level policy concept of what we could do to knock those barriers down. Education, as you said, a couple things here. First of all, part of what we'll educate is how a family of 4 can eat healthy on $10 a day, because I think it's a misconception that eating healthy is expensive. Beans are a great example. They're extraordinarily cheap, they're filling, they're good for you, they're easy to make. We have over 600 recipes that we'll be sharing on how to prepare. We'll be putting on healthy eating and healthy cooking demonstrations to teach people how to go and buy and how to prepare healthy meals throughout. And then restaurants, I think, is a really important one. What we do when we work with restaurants is connect, and in some cases, students that help them with their menu and their nutritional content, and create an environment when you walk into a Blue Zone restaurant that it will be very easy to see what the healthy choices are. And in many cases, they're revenue neutral or actually cheaper to get people to eat healthy and create these healthy eating moais where people can either dine together in their homes and teach and learn together or go out to Blue Zone. No silver bullet to it, but part of our work is to really unleash a tsunami of education and healthy choices.
So I'm going to follow up with two really quick questions. After you gave that brilliant answer, what's your favorite sin food?
My favorite sin food. Well, my wife is so there's an expert who's done a lot of work on healthy food environments, and he's shown that if you put a bowl of fruit in the center of your kitchen, you'll consume 47% more fruit. My wife's strategy is to put a bowl of candy. And luckily, I like it, but not as much as she does. I love ice cream. I don't eat it all that often, but when
What kind are we choosing when you can choose?
a butter brittle, maple nut is, and butter pecan are my favorites. And when I indulge, I certainly indulge. I think it's a good point here. Blue Zones and Blue Zones work is not about prohibiting. It's not about giving up everything. It's about mindfully eating. It's about setting up your environments. So healthy choice is the easy choice.
And having joy. The other question I was going to ask is, so we were with Dan maybe a month and a half ago, and he's writing an article. I don't want to spoil things.
No.
About what are the foods for the next 20 years if you could grow things to feed the world. And he said that, and I'm going to ask you just to comment on this. He said that in one area of the world, there's 3 foods that subsisted a population for hundreds of years. And that was black beans, which he thinks might be the most sort of nutritious food. The pigment is the same as the pigment in blueberries, and corn and squash. So your comments on that.
Yeah, so you're talking about the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica, which is one of the 5 Blue Zones. It's an area where the whole population has a 3 times better chance of living to a healthy age 90 than we do here in America. And that population has been really eating the same diet for 4 millennials, for 4,000 years. Just simple corn, squash, and beans, and nutritious fruits and vegetables. And it's really changed very little over the last 4,000 years. Dan has been spending his time over the last 6 months visiting the original Blue Zones and meeting with centenarians and trying to capture the recipes of these longest lived populations, because they are changing. They are open to American food concept, and their longevity is starting to come down. Yesterday morning on the Today Show, Dan did a piece with Maria Shriver on the island of Ikaria, where people think, well, it's all the genes, but what was demonstrated yesterday is you can take a family from Ikaria and plant them into Cleveland, Ohio, and within 1 generation, they're suffering the same disease prevalence of anyone else in Cleveland. So it goes to show how important changing our environment and our lifestyle and setting it up has an impact on us.
Yeah, I have one from the audience. Does the Blue Zones project envision taking the project into the workplace? And this is specifically, I think, related to individual departments and how they can partner and how they would be involved. If you have some examples of how that might play out, and how we engage individual departments and individuals within implementation.
So the answer is definitely a yes. The areas that we work in that I mentioned earlier are, as it relates to places, are schools and restaurants and grocery stores, convenience stores, faith-based. But employers are enormous because it's so important to work with work sites so the learning can go from there to the home and work with where those people's kids are going to school, and where it's part of that circle of Life Radius and creating an opportunity that wherever you go, the healthy choices are the easy choice. To date, we've worked with over 3,000 organizations. Employers are a huge part of that. What we would do is the Blue Zone Project would be open for every single office here on the university and hopefully in Morgantown, and there'd be trained experts hired from your community that would reach out to each and every one of those employers. They would sit down with what we call the pledge, which is about 80 evidence-based, science-backed little nudges and defaults and strategies. Sit down and understand what's already happening there and give credit for those things, but then work with that employer to identify what specifically would work for their culture, their priorities, and their strategies, and work together to implement enough strategies to change that environment so the healthy choice could be easy. Some cases where, as examples, is to create policy benefits that incentivize people to walk or bike or to use public transportation. There's a pretty simple fix there. Where there's an elevator, maybe turning the speed of the elevator way down and opening the door to the steps and make the steps welcoming and safe and lit. Again, when you're talking about different departments creating up friendly competitions to see who can walk the most miles during lunch, who's walking the steps. I think volunteer competitions are very important to choose priorities for each of those departments and how they'd like to help their community, and then go out and help them do that. But what we'd focus our energy on is really changing that environment so that when you walk into those office spaces, that the healthy choice is just the default. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Julie.
Oh, I think this dovetails pretty well, and also chocolate lava cake is my thing. I'm part of some of the wellness committee and mindfulness committees here. And one thing that I have a question about is working with reluctant populations. You sort of kind of almost answered it, talking about working with different cultures. But one thing that we're doing starting tomorrow for me is spending 8 hours shadowing, 4 different nurses on, multiple days and actually getting this direct feedback. So I'm also wondering, how do we start a conversation? How do we start spreading the word about Blue Zones to these people that we're working with so that we can enroll them? And hey, otherwise they view, according to the executive committee we met with, they almost view wellness. They're forcing you
Sentence
to take
to
a break.
wellness.
We'll kind of want to change that conversation a little bit.
Definitely not. the
First of
goal.
all, thank you for your question, and thank you for all the great work that you're doing. Obviously, it's going to be very important for us during this discovery process to learn from the committees and people like yourself of what those barriers and challenges are. When I talk about people earlier in the Life Radius concept, it's hard to get people to get excited in some cases, to take control. So I think it's no silver bullet. It's a lot of awareness. Over the next 3 to 4 years, you could expect between 1 and 2 billion positive media impressions around the Blue Zone Project, talking about organizations and individuals like you that are doing like-minded work and celebrating it and connecting it to the longest lived populations into Blue Zones. That drives the awareness, that education, and it drives engagement. I think we need to learn from the very specific challenges that you have here, because every community has their own specific challenges and barriers. And this project is not a box that is a one size fits all. And that's why it's so important that we're spending 4 months here to really learn specifically. To end and to make a comment to your question, when you look at the longest lived populations, when you ask them, did you wake up every morning live to age 100? The answer is always no. They didn't pursue longevity. Their environments and lifestyle caused longevity to ensue. And what is so special about the Blue Zone Project and the model that we've created is that the treatment effect becomes your community. It becomes your work site. It becomes the policies and programs that your leaders are implementing. It becomes the restaurants you go to, the grocery stores you go to, the faith-based communities and the events. That's the treatment effect, so it affects all within that community. Well, thank you very much for the question.
And Tara, we have two questions from the audience, I think. Somebody over here.
Okay.
And then we have here.
Hi, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
I heard Terry Gross do Dan Buettner's interview in 2010, and I've been a Blue Zone champion ever since.
Oh,
So,
wonderful. Thank you.
yeah, it's great. Anyway, I've retired from the university. In fact, I believe I taught Dr. Marsh biochemistry back in those days.
And I remember everything.
Can you share those grades?
Is lying prohibited in the blue zones? Yeah.
Anyway, I retired after 40 years here at the university. I retired 3 years ago. And so my world had been the university. And now I'm doing a fair amount of volunteer work in the community. And I was, in fact, participating in the Blue Zone group that came about a month and a half ago.
Super.
But what I'm noticing, and it's very interesting, is there is the university and then there's the community. And there's really a division there that I'm now experiencing. And so what I'm hoping is that you all will be aware that, the way you kind of broke things up there kind of showed that. You had the university and you had the community, which is great right now. But I'm hoping in the future, we really can be an example of bringing town gown together.
So I think that we should create the communiversity.
I like that.
I can say just being on the planning end, working so intensely with the Blue Zone team over the last several months, we have a university Blue Zone planning team. There is a community planning team, and then we have a joint university and community planning team. And we've embarked on this phase one as a team, both the community and the university. And I think while there are definitely differences and divide between community and the university, there's overlap that you can't escape. And so when we receive our report from Blue Zone, the community planning team will have some decisions to make. The university team will have some decisions to make, and we envision having joint discussions about initiatives that we would carry on together and fund together and work together to implement.
Thank you very much, Tara. For us, the benefit is we're outsiders here. We don't know all this history, but over the next 4 months, we're listening, right? And we're hearing comments about barriers, and maybe some of those barriers are whether the university does something, that the community does the other. At the end of this, and I haven't been in all those meetings, and I'm not even saying that's the truth, but my point is we're learning of what's working and what's not, and we're coming forth with the opportunities. And I truly believe that there are great synergies between both participating, both being part of leadership steering committees and committees, and using those economies of scale to drive big change.
We had a question over here. Ali, you have a question?
Very nice presentation, Tony. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
A question, you mentioned earlier in your talk that there are 47 certified zones, and very quickly you referenced a small city in Minnesota. Was there at any time during your conversations with community leaders with respect to their pledge and engagement around financial hit to the community? Because an investment in this type of an effort will require some compromise on the profit, whether they are private sectors or government sectors. Was there any discussion around that and how were you able to overcome those barriers?
Yeah, so just to be clear, Blue Zone projects are 100% privately funded, private-public collaborations. So dollars for these projects haven't come out of people's taxes. They've been privately funded to this date. So we look at who have those entities been. They've been insurers, they've been hospital systems, they've been large employers, health districts, health foundations, or philanthropists, or the collection thereof. When we look at things like, so this are typically gifts to every individual and organization in the community to participate, and it comes down to their choice to participate. What we have seen is by demonstrating this systems inclusive, measurable approach to population health, we're seeing our existing Blue Zone communities going to the front of the line to get add-on grants for the work that they're doing. So as it relates to things like safe routes to school or complete streets policies or PEP grants for schools or dollars coming from local, regional, or national entities around the built environment, we're actually seeing each of our communities on average yielding about $8 million in add-on grants for projects to get done. So it's not coming out of budgets. I always like to point to the city of Muscatine, Iowa. It was one of our early project communities about 8 years ago in Iowa. It's a city of about 28,000 people on the Mississippi River. They wanted to envision and change their downtown to revitalize. And they worked with our team and our built environment expert to really envision a complete change so that the community was set up for biking and walking and congregating and economic investment. And over 3 years, they received $460 million worth of grants, gifts, and direct economic impact into that project. So part of our work is sharing that with city leaders, sharing the opportunities that are out there, and helping to envision the value of change. Thank you.
So Tara and Tony, we're down to our last minute or two. And what I would like to ask, last question, then Tara can close it for us, is with all of the different things that you presented that are really important in the Blue Zone areas, what is the single thing that you would have our audience take away today?
It is well documented that organizations and individuals that are working in silos really hurt how far you can move a community. These projects demonstrate the power of a collective impact, about cutting down waste and inefficiencies and bringing all the extraordinary assets and expertise in the community work together to drive just extraordinary change. And we've seen it happen 47 times. So I'd talk about partnerships as being that one thing.
Tara, you want to close us?
Well, yeah, I just thank everybody for being here. I really encourage you to spread the word and really be involved in the assessment activities that the Blue Zone team will be conducting over the next few weeks. I'm really excited about the journey that we're embarking on, and I thank you very much for being here, Tony.
Such an honor. Thank you for being here too. Thank you, everyone.
And we will go up in the top, if that's okay with you, Tony, because I know other people have some questions, and we'll in the top part. So thanks so much. That was awesome, man. That's great. That's great. Wow, thank you.